time for spelling analysis. Today's list has a number of words that have exceptions to the rules. As we study these words, I want you to think about how many words you've already learned which follow the rules perfectly. The exceptions are rare, and you'll also notice that most of the words still follows the rules. All right, our first word is important. It is important to learn the phonograms in spelling rules. Say important. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell important. What will we say to spell? Important. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is im. Use an I-E-ya. Pour. Or. Tant. T-a-n-t. Go ahead and write important, sounding it out as you write it. Important. And sound it out as I write it. The first syllable is im. Pour, or, tant. T-a-n-t. And let's read it. Important. Important. What should we mark in this word? You're right, we'll underline the or. Excellent. The next word is family. They are a great family. Go ahead and say family. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell fam-i-ly. What will we say to spell? Fam-i-ly. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is fam. Use an I-E-ya. Lee, L-E. Do you know what kind of E? That's right, it's a ya-I-E. Go ahead and write fam-i-ly. And sound it out as I write it. Fam, ly, L-E. And how will we mark it? What sound of ya-I-E do you hear? The fourth. That's right. And there it is, saying its E sound at the end of a multi-syllable word in an unstressed syllable. And I is saying it because I and Y may say it or I at the end of the syllable. Let's read it. F-A-M-I-L-E, family. The next word is sugar. Would you like some sugar in your tea? Sugar. Go ahead and say sugar. This is one of the words that has an assimilating sound next to a U. So we will say to spell sugar. What will we say to spell? Sugar. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is su. S-U. This is a s, by the way. The second syllable is gar. G-R. Go ahead and write sugar. It does sound very silly. And help me to write it. U-gar. G-R. And how will we mark it? We'll put a line over the U because it said its long sound. Why? A-E-O-U usually say their long sounds at the end of the syllable. And we'll underline the R. Now, when we read it and we say sugar, what do we really say? Sugar. So let's talk about this. If you say sugar over and over, you'll get su, shu. Do you hear that? It begins to assimilate to sh. And then the R is saying its schwa sound So this is a pretty unusual word, but we still have a logic to why it's spelled this way. And that logic involves assimilating sounds and the AR saying its schwa sound The next word is isle. Let's sail the boat out to the small isle. Go ahead and say isle. Let's sound it out. This is an I-E-ya. Silent S. Did you hear that? Silent S. Silent final E. Go ahead and write isle. And now let's write it together. Silent S, silent final E. All right, how will we mark it? We'll put a line over the I. Why did it say its long sound? Probably because the vowel said its long sound because of the E. Now we also have a silent S here. This word is from French, and that silent S comes from its French origins. But we read this I-O, isle. The next word is island. Let's swim out to the island. Go ahead and say island. All right, how many syllables? 2. We will say to spell I, sland, and the reason that we're adding that is to remember that like isle, it has a silent S. So let's sound it out together. What will we say to spell I, sland? Let's sound it out. The first syllable is I. I, use an I, E, ya. And then sland, S-L-A-N-D. Go ahead and write I, sland. And again, the S is silent when we read the word. And tell me to write it. I, S-L-A-N-D. And how will we mark it? We'll put a line over the I. Why did it say it's long sound? I and Y may say if or I at the end of the syllable. And here we have that silent S again. So island used to be spelled without an S. And then someone noticed that the French word isle was part of English, and they added the S to island to make the roots look the same due to morphology, that balance of meaning. And you'll notice that it then has a silent S in it to keep it looking like isle, which has a similar meaning to island. Excellent. The next word is wrist. The watch is too small for his wrist. Go ahead and say wrist. Let's sound it out. Wrist. That's two-letter the consonant Ist. Go ahead and write wrist. And let's write it together. Ist. How will we mark it? We'll underline the Let's read it. Ist, wrist. Do you remember what this two-letter phonogram means? It means to twist. How does the word wrist relate to the word twist? You're right, your wrist is a joint that twists. And so that's why they chose that phonogram when spelling the word wrist. The next word is heel. The shoe is giving me a blister on my heel. Go ahead and say heel. Let's sound it out. E, use an E-double-E, ul. Go ahead and write heel. And tell me to write it. E-ul. How will we mark it? We'll underline the E. Let's read it. E-ul, heel. The next word is soccer. Do you like to play soccer? Go ahead and say soccer. How many syllables in soccer? 2. We will say to spell sock-cur. What will we say to spell? Sock-cur. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is sock. S, use a s. A-k, use a k. S. The second syllable is cur. K, use a k. S. The of her. Go ahead and write sock-cur. And tell me to write it. The first syllable is sock. S-a-k. The second syllable is cur. K-er. How do we mark it? Well, underline the Now, I have a question for you. Who can find an exception to the phonograms or spelling rules in the word soccer? Do you see it? That's right. C always softens to S before an E, I, or Y. But here, what is it saying? It's saying K. By the way, this is extremely rare. This is one of the only words where the C says K before an E. So you can find a complete list of those words in Uncovering the Logic of English. But this is an exception to our spelling rules, and it is very rare. Good job spotting that. The next word is gigantic. There is a gigantic fortress on the top of the hill. Gigantic. Say gigantic. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell gigantic. What will we say to spell? Gigantic. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is J. J, use a G, J. I, use an I, E, y. Gan, G, A, N. Tick, T, I, use an I, E, y. K, use a K, S. Go ahead and write gigantic. And help me to write it. The first syllable is J, I, gan, G, A, N, tick, T, I, K. And how do we mark it? What sound of G, J do you hear in the first part of gigantic? The second, J. Why? G may soften to J before an E, I, or Y. Now, why is it saying G here? Because if, let's say the whole rule, G may soften to J before an E, I, or Y. Otherwise, G says G. And here it's before an A, so it must say G. Let's read it. J, oh, we have one more thing to mark. What is it? We'll put a line over the I, and why did it say it's long sound? I and Y may say I or I at the end of the syllable. Let's read it. J, I, G, A, N, T, ick, gigantic. The next word is difference. What is the difference between the two of those? Difference. Say difference. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell difference. What will we say to spell? Difference. Let's sound it out together. Diff. D, I, use an I, E, y. Fur. Use the of her. Ence. N, s. Use a k, s. Silent final E. Go ahead and write difference. And help me to write it. Diff, D, I, f. Fur, ence. N, s. Silent final E. How do we mark it? Why did the C say s in difference? That's right, the C softened to s because of the E. We'll also underline the Let's read it. D, I, f, ence, difference. Excellent. The next word is hurricane. There is a hurricane coming. Hurricane. Say hurricane. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell hurricane. What will we say to spell? Hurricane. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is her. Use the of hurt. I, use an I, E, y. Cane. K, use a k, s. A, n. Silent final E. Go ahead and write hurricane, sounding it out as you write it. Hurricane. And help me to write it. Hurricane. K, A, n. Silent final E. How do we mark it? We'll underline the and why did the I say its short sound? I and Y may say I or I at the end of the syllable. Then we'll put a line over the A and double underline the silent E. Why? The vowel said its long sound because of the E. Let's read it. Hurricane. The next word is acrobat. The acrobat had a great performance. Acrobat. Say acrobat. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell acrobat. What will we say to spell? Acrobat. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is ac. Ac. Use a k, s. Ro. O. Bat. B-at. Go ahead and write acrobat. And help me to write it. Bat. B-at. And how do we mark it? We'll put a line over the O. Why did it say its long sound? A, E, O, U usually say their long sounds at the end of the syllable. Let's read it. Acrobat. The next word is popular. That song is very popular. Say popular. How many syllables? 3. We will say to spell pop-u-lar. What will we say to spell? Pop-u-lar. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is pop. P-a-p. U. Lar. L-r. Go ahead and write pop-u-lar, sounding it out as you write it. And help me to write it. Pop. P-a-p-u-lar. L-r. And how will we mark it? We'll put a line over the U and we'll underline the R. Why did the U say its long sound? Popular. That's right. A, E, O, U usually say their long sounds at the end of the syllable. And what's happening here? We don't say popular, we say popular. Why? AR is saying schwa sound in an unstressed syllable. Let's read it. P-o-p-u-l-r, popular. Excellent. The next word is attempt. Would you like to make a second attempt at solving the problem? Attempt. Say attempt. How many syllables? 2. Do you hear a schwa sound? Attempt? That's right. We will say to spell at-tempt. What will we say to spell? At-tempt. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is at. At. The second syllable is tempt. T-e-m-p-t. Go ahead and write at-tempt. And help me to write it. The first syllable is at, tempt, t-e-m-p-t. And let's read it. At-tempt, attempt. Excellent. And there's that schwa sound. That vowel is saying its lazy sound, schwa, or I, which any vowel may say in an unstressed syllable. The next word is climate. We live in a very cold climate. Say climate. How many syllables? 2. We will say to spell climate. What will we say to spell? Climate. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is cli. K. Use a k. S. I. Use an I-E-Y. Mate. M-A-T. Silent final E. Go ahead and write climate, sounding it out as you write it. And help me to write it. Mate. M-A-T. Silent final E. How do we mark it? We'll put a line over the I. Why did it say its long sound? I and Y may say it or I at the end of the syllable. And then why do we have a silent final E in climate? The vowel said its long sound because of the E. Now we're hearing it say climate. We're hearing it say it. So what is that about? That's right. Any vowel may say its schwa sound, or I, in an unstressed syllable. And the stressed syllable is climate, and this is unstressed. Let's read it. K-l-i-m-8, climate. Excellent. Great work today. Look at all of these words you can explain, including some new words with exceptions like soccer.
Combining the science of reading with the joy of learning. Learn more at essentials.logicoфenglish.com.